sometime bump into each other in Seattle in person and also in LinkedIn and in other social medias. And I appreciate the opportunity by the leadership team because they have a vast pool of speakers that they can choose from. So I do not take this as a guaranteed, and I appreciate the opportunity. And thank you, everyone, those who joined. I know this is not easy after a whole day of work and then coming here and listening to me in the evening. So I do appreciate that, and I'll try to make a good use of your time. A couple of housekeeping rules. So I am watching the chat on a third monitor. So if you have a question, comment, please put in the chat. I will stop and I'll try to answer it. This is a topic that I am also in a learning phase. In no way I claim myself as an expert on this. So sometime you might have question that I do not know, but I'll take a note and I'll make sure I get back to you later on. I'll also give you my contacts to reach out to me. I haven't uploaded any of these to my GitHub repo, but I plan to by this weekend, and then you can download anything and everything. You do not need to take notes or you do not need to take screenshots. I will share everything, and you can use it, present it, do whatever you need, or you can give me feedback. Uh, I haven't given this session anywhere else. This is the first time. So if you have any feedback, put in the chat. Constructive feedback, you like it, you don't like it, why you don't like it, what do you want to see, um, and what was not useful to you. All of these are good feedback. So I am going to get started. Most of my slides you will see at the bottom, uh, either a URL or if I copied it from somewhere else, I mentioned it. So just take a note, like as you can see in the first slide, this image was generated using Microsoft Copilot. So there's a disclaimer, and most of the slides you'll see a disclaimer. I intend to finish talking about the slides within first 15 to 20 minutes and then go straight to demo and spend most of the time in live demo. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about my certifications, but I want you to take a note of my contact on the left. I actually removed my Twitter or X handle because uh, I just think it's not a platform that I can support anymore for my personal reason. And I think many of the data professionals, we had a huge talk about this during past summit a couple of weeks ago, and most of us or many of us are trying to move to Blue Sky. So I have the same handle. You can contact me there or email through my website, whatever works for you. So this is the goal for tonight. A little bit talk about generative AI evolution, or through the time series, and then some of the key terms. I still see a lot of people are new to this, so unless you get the terms correct in your head, you will struggle. So I put some few definitions. So we'll talk about those, and then my main goal is to make a reasoning why we need to look at this against our SQL Server structured data. Because, for many years, since SQL Server, probably over 30 years, people has been using T-SQL. And yes, Python and other languages you can run against, against SQL Server, but we didn't have to use models to get answer. So why now, right? What's the big deal? Why do we need to look at this? So I'll try to make a case. And then as you see 6 bullet points, I'll try to demo all this if time allows. Otherwise, I'll share the screen, the scripts that you can set up and run by yourself. But we'll go through quickly through the slides and not talk too much about this because there's no reason for you to read the slides. You can download and read it later on your own time. So again, this slide was copied. As you can see at the bottom, I have a disclaimer here. I haven't created this. So in last couple of years, especially since 2017, 2018, you probably have been hearing a lot, and especially after, post-COVID, you've been hearing a lot about generative AI. Gen AI, some people call it. But this is not really not nothing new, right? I was not even born in 1950s. Many of you probably were not. But if you read some history books and look at it, some of the stuff actually started in early 50s, and from there, it came. Um, the different phases. So I'm not going to read through this. I just want to make a point that this is not something really new. People have been, working on this. People have been testing, writing models, writing codes about these things for a long, long time. Um, Alan Turing, he started in 1950 initially, and then a lot of people contributed. So, and you can find all this data or read about this. But I just want to make a point that even though it seems like everything started in last 2 3 years, but that's really not the no, not the fact. And this is a good time series. I copied it from a LinkedIn. I also put the link here. I find it is a very nice if someone doesn't want to read, for hours, but just want to see a simple timeline. You can go to this URL and read about it. It has just with the year and just couple of bullet points like what happened in which year, and the progression is starting from 1950s up to 2024, which is pretty nice, I find. So I just want to mention it. If you are into those things, want to know, this is a very short, like about 10-minute read, give you a pretty good idea. As you can see, like, one of the things that I did not know that the first version of GPT was actually released in 2018. I had no clue at that time, because I was probably not paying attention. So I was really surprised to see that when I was reading this. Uh, and it has some other data. So if you're interested, look at it. So I'm going to go through a few definitions, and the first one I choose is a prompt, because wondering if you would not mind sharing your slides. Excellent timeline of the. If you would not mind sharing, I'm not understanding the question that Sylvie put. Yes, I will share the slide. I'll upload this in my GitHub repo by this weekend or early next week, and you can download. And I'll share my GitHub repo here at the end. Uh, so uh, the first one I wrote is a prompt, because to me uh, this is very important. Some people might think that uh, cooked. Okay, I don't understand what's cooked means. So okay, uh, unless you are good at prompt, your answers are not going to be good. So even though it looks pretty simple that, I'm just going to ask a question and I'm going to get my answer, that is probably true for very simple things. Um, for example, you are asking for distance between Boston and Toronto. Uh, you can just say, give me the distance. But if you want to be more specific, you can also mention that you're going to be traveling by car, or you're going to be traveling by plane or train, right? That makes a difference. So the more you put in, the better answer you're going to get. So the definition is pretty simple. Input text or query that provide you to an AI model to generate responses. Now, I'm not going to read this slide, but I created this to summarize um, that there are different type of prompts, and there I put some examples also here, uh, and you should understand this. Especially, I will be demoing the last one, as you see here, retrieval augmented generation prompts, RAG, uh, which we'll use during our demo. So in a summary, what RAG does is you ask a question, but you also enrich your question with data. So you're not going to type all the data, right? So you can point it to a database or other data source uh, that supports your question or that's relevant to your question. So your prompt extracting that data from another source, bundle it together, and then send it to the model. And the model also have access to your data. right? So the model can go and look at the data, get a context from there, and send you the answer. So it's not just what you're typing in the prompt. Uh, the next one, you will hear a lot about grounding the prompt. This is a term you will hear in many talks, in many literatures. So what does that mean? It means, let me just turn this on first. So you can provide additional context to your question. And also the model can have more context while answering. And you can do it in many different ways. Uh, so the method of doing this is called grounding. Um, and like RAG is one of the examples we just talked about of grounding a prompt. So we just talked about this, but let me go back and, there is a definition here. I also put, this is one way of grounding. There are other ways also, but this is a very popular way, and this is relevant to SQL Server database that I'll show you during the demo. And there are three steps. So if we go back, it's a retrieval, means it's going to retrieve the data from your whatever other source that you say you provide, and it's going to augment that whatever it can pull from your other source, and then it is going to generate a response. So these three terms, they came with the term called RAG. So let's look at this, in a visual way. So without grounding your prompt or without having any external data source, can't only others calibrate every day. Okay. Sorry, Nick. I don't know. Uh, so you put a prompt, you get an answer from the model. That's basic, without any grounding, without anything. And now, once I have RAG, what it does, it goes and search other data, right? And as you see on the right side, it doesn't have to be database. It can be one of many things, or can be more than one of many things. So it also goes based on your prompt, go and search from there and make your prompt more richer. So now your prompt plus your search result, and now you get the result back, right? Now, how does this work without database? Again, we'll talk about vectors and embeddings in future slide. So you do a natural language chat, you ask a question, and then it goes and look at your database indexes, and we'll talk about vectors and all that. And now, using both your prompt and your vectors and embeddings, which is index type of index, we'll talk about more, you get the response. So hopefully I'm making some sense that why, as a database professional or primarily SQL Server database professional or other structured data, why we need to look at this, or what it is going to give us advantage for our customers when we are writing applications. So you saw in the previous slide something called vector. I'm sure if you took math classes, I don't know at what level in high school or in early college level, you probably heard about vectors. So there are ordered arrays of numbers, typically floats, that can represent information about some data. So why do I say some data, right? It's a very vague definition because it can be many things, right? It can be text, can be picture, can be many other things. Uh, I am not going to demo with pictures, but there are some URLs I put at the end that you can also play with pictures and other kind of data, but I'll mostly show you text data today. And embedding is the process of creating the vectors, right? So no, let me. So data, words, images into numerical vectors that capture the semantic meaning. That process itself, we call it a embedding. And I don't know if you caught this recently. It was announced. I'm not sure. I think it was in the no. It was I think probably before Ignite. That in Azure SQL database, which we'll be using today, this is the native data type right now is a vector. So you can just declare it like any other data type and start saving uh, this float numbers. Okay, so this is another slide that just show you a little bit of what's vectors and embeddings. So as you can see, these are simple words: height, weight, age, far, length, energy level, right? And so you can vectorize the word a dog with those numbers. You can have an image of a dog, and then you can have a puppy vectorized like that. And then when you say, I took the dog for a walk, that you can also vectorize that. And then once you have done that and saved that data, then you can do a search. And this is an example of cosine, but there are other functions that you can use to find similarity. And yeah, so that's kind of one of the use which we'll see in the demo in how to really use this. This is another term called token. You will hear a lot, even if you are using models, depending on what tier you are using. You will see some limitations of tokens, how many tokens you can use for asking a question, how many tokens you can get back as an answer and all that. So I just thought it would be a good idea to mention this here. Right? It's a unit of text. A single word is not a single token. It can be broken in different ways. But you'll see this term all the time when you are using these models. Uh, so why, again, I want to come back to this point, like, this is one of my goal is to make a case that why would you be looking at these things, right? Why T-SQL or Python or C Sharp, JavaScript was not enough, right? So there are different kind of search, and I'm not going to read this. I copied this actually from Learn website. As you can see, I put the URL at the bottom. So SQL Server actually had semantic search built in, uh, which was built on top of full text search. So why do we need this, right? Uh, so as you can see, vector search, hybrid plus semantic is not available in SQL Server natively. Before. It is available now with the vector data type. So without going to to the portal, you can do everything from with T-SQL or Python, but you still need to use the models. And I listed some of the reason, and again, I'm not going to read this. I'll share this with you. That why we use large language models (LLMs) over built-in SQL Server semantic search, right? So these are a couple of key points. This is not exhaustive list or exhaustive explanation of why, but if you're interested, this can give you some cue, and you can go and search for these topics and read more about this. That why should we be looking at this beyond whatever language you've been using to extract insights from structured data. So I'm going to take a pause here and let people ask questions or comments because we're not going to talk about slides anymore. We'll go to the demo.
So if there's any questions, if you want to raise your hand, come off mute. Not
Okay,
seeing anything.
sure. So I'll continue. So before I go, I'm going to, before I move to demo, these are the three things that I'm going to use, and I'll explain what tools are these. But if we don't come back here, these are a couple of references that I put in. All of these has a UI underneath, sorry, a URL that you can go and read. Uh, uh, Many of the stuff that you will see here actually came from the first one. This is a SQL AI workshop that that Bob Ward uh, made it public. So I copied a couple of things from there, and I made sure I gave disclaimer in anywhere that I put it in. Okay, so if no question, I am going to go to the demos. So before all of you came online, uh, I have created a couple of things that I want to show you. So I created a resource group. If you're new to Azure, if you do not know what's a resource group, this is just a logical container to hold your resources or to deploy your resources. The advantage is that after I'm done, I can just delete my resource group and everything is going to get deleted. I do not have to go and delete one by one. Plus, there are many other reasons why you should, how do you create a resource group? How do you do tagging and all that? That's not the scope of this talk. So I have a SQL server and I have a database that I loaded some data for demo purpose. I also gave detailed instructions where I got the data from, so you can set this up. I have a Azure Search service, and I also have Azure OpenAI service. And I'll explain this more as we use this. So I connected to that Azure SQL server. I have a database named test data, and I'll mostly be using customer table um, and Walmart products. I also played a little bit with Amazon product. These are all free sample data. I put the URL in the right place so you can download, but I had to do some cleanup. Um, like I can show you, if you go to this is a raw that I loaded. As you see, this symbols that kind of messed up. The model couldn't read those. I couldn't create a vector for these descriptions, and I was getting some weird errors. So one of my colleague at work, Howard Dunn, he helped me clean up the data, and I shared the function that we use to clean up this description column. And then we'll also use customer table. I noticed one thing that any table not in the DBO schema, like sales LT, the search service could not find it. I'm still trying to find the reason. I really don't know at this time. I probably have to reach out to some people to find that out. I just want to mention it because you might run into the same issue if you are going to try to replicate what I'm showing you today. So this is a tool called Azure Data Studio. If you do not know, this is published by Microsoft. It's multi-platform, and I'm using something called a notebook. And you can search for notebook. There are some sessions that many data professionals gave how to get started with notebook. Notebooks has kernel because you can write different languages. This is a SQL kernel. And as you can see, you can have Python kernel, PowerShell, and all that. In a nutshell, a notebook, I can write comments. As you can see here, I can write code, run this, and save this with the result set. So I put some prerequisites here. Uh, I'll also probably upload the whole backpack file for the database, so you do not have to go and download the data and clean up. You can just restore the backpack. If you do not know what's a backpack, it's pretty much the schema and the data scripted out or BCP out, and you can just restore it in Azure SQL Server. with any database name and look it up. And then I also said, create Azure AI search, Azure OpenAI. So before you do anything, in portal, there is actually for Azure SQL, there is a natural language to SQL built in the query editor. So let's look at that. So if I go to my data, and if I go to query editor, put my password, and this is built in. You do not have to do anything. You do not have to deploy the uh, model or anything. Are you able to share where you can download free data for students to download, clean, analyze, present to visualization, such Tableau? You look like you have some excellent resources. So there is a website called, so Sylvie asked a question, right? So I haven't paid for any of this data. So whatever you see here, I downloaded. I think it's called Kaggle. Some of you, the BI people, might know more. Yeah, Kaggle.com. Uh, Not everything is free there, but there are smaller sets that you can download. So I'm just going to type this for Kaggle, what Sylvia asked. So try to look at that. I'm sure there are other websites. I looked at this one. You need to open an account, but you don't need your credit card to put in. If you are just getting, okay, so yeah, so Bimal Chandra has another one. So yes, so I'm sure there are many more. So okay, nice. Thanks to everyone who is helping out. So let me take this to a different window so I can quickly copy paste the question. So as you can see here, if I open the Copilot, I have 19 table included, and I haven't deployed any model. I haven't done anything. I didn't create any vector or anything. You can just come here and you can just ask questions in a natural language, right? Find customers and which products they have purchased for our mountain bike by state and by total sales. So generate a query. One thing I'll definitely tell you, please do not put this in your production without you testing it. So let's copy this. It's hard to read here, but I'm going to bring this to SSMS and see what did you get. It actually tells you, it put the whole thing in a comment for a purpose, right? So you can just run it. And it actually explains some of this stuff here, right? And then if we run this, let's see. Uh, I am now did get the, because I did change the schema. So let's see what happened. Product name and product name. Okay. So as you can see, it made some mistakes, right? So it says product name, which is P on C OD sales LT dot product. So let's look at that. There is no product name, right? So we can just say product. That's why I said you cannot rely on this. Even though when I tested it, it gave me the right answer, uh, but now it is not. Yeah. So instead of product name, you can get the product number. As you can see, right? It did most of the job correctly, but it couldn't get this. So let's try another one. And I put few more examples. I'm not going to run all this. You can, like I said, you can download this and you can test it by yourself. I just wanted to make sure that you get the idea. So let's put another question here. I said count all customers group by state, give the top 10 states with most and least customers by customer count. So I purposely said most and least. I just want to see what it does. Okay, so this is clever. I'll tell you, first time when I tried this, this is a common confusion in the community. You'll see there's a lot of questions even in a Stack Exchange that when I have a CT, and if you do not know what's a CT, it's a common table expression. I cannot have two consecutive selects. So initially, when I was testing this, what it was doing, it had a select here, and then it did not have the CT again. It just had two selects in a row. The problem with this, your first one is going to work, and your second one is not going to work, right? Because you cannot do this. So now it's clever enough that it gave you two CT and you can get the top 10 most and the least count. So it's pretty clever. Uh, how about we ask this to create a store procedure for us? Uh, one thing I noticed that this does not have any access to systems tables. How do I know that? I pose this question. Which table have consumed the most spaces in this database? And still working. I'm not sure what happened. Let me. Okay, it's not doing anything. Generate query. It wouldn't be able to. I did test this. And I think most likely because it doesn't have any access to the systems table. Yeah, oh, it says here, failed to execute query, right? It asked me to rephrase my question. So it looks like it doesn't have any access to the systems table. And the last one I'm going to try here is create a store proc, and I put some descriptions. And it did. So let's look at this. So I said, show all cells by customer ID with customer ID as input parameter. I also said, raise an error if the customer ID doesn't exist, right? So let's create this, and I have some test code that I'm going to run. So it created that. Let's see if it gives us the right. Oh, I need to make sure it is the same name. Show cells by customer ID. Oh, okay. So it does do the right job. I know I don't have a customer ID with 8. It does give us an error message. So it's pretty good. Okay. So the next one is I'm going to show you is so I have all these questions here. You can play with this. Uh, so this was in the query editor. Now Microsoft Copilot is also now built into the portal, which you can use to ask some of the questions. So let's look at that. So let's close this. And I'm in my database pane. and I'm just going to turn on this Copilot, right? This is still in preview, and let's ask the same question that we did not get answer from the query editor, right? Which tables consumed most spaces in the database? It actually runs some system query that you can see that it's actually executing a query on the server, because otherwise, it has no way to know. So it's going to go and run some query against the system databases, which most of you probably have it in your library to look at, the tables that's taking most space. There's also a built-in report in SSMS. So it does a pretty good job, right? Gives you the top 5, gives you very detailed, like, row, total space, usage space, unused space. And it actually gives you the query here if you want to, go and look at it. You can get that query. Um, okay, I'm just going to ask another question, and then we'll move on. If you see your database is slow or you have issues, you can ask the question directly here. It will probably say no right now because I'm really not running anything. But I tried it with some workload running using SQL Stress, IO Stress, or some other tools. You can see that it will give you a pretty good answer. You could also practice in data challenges like the one from Maven Analytics. Okay. Uh, See, it says there are no insights returned regarding excessive IO, but it gave me some suggestions that if you see it, what you can look at. So it's pretty, without you doing anything, pretty good insights you can get through, built-in stuff. So let's move on um, to the real stuff now. So these are all built-in GUI based. We're going to do some keyword search, not a semantic search to start with, using a large language model GPT-4. Uh, and then I have some questions here that we're going to ask and see what kind of answer we get. Uh, so this is the only one I'm going to do from scratch, but most of the stuff I already uh, created just to save time. But this is pretty small, so I think I can do it from the scratch, just so you know how to do this if you have never done this. So you create a search service. The first thing you need, you create a data source. I'm going to use those for other demos, but for one demo, I'm just going to create it from scratch just so everyone can see it. We're going to our Azure SQL database, and we're going to name this data source customers, right? So our table, test data, table, DBO, customer. And you can also, if you have um, change tracking, you can turn this on. So as your data is changing, your index is going to get updated. It's not going to be still. I'm not doing this here just for demo purpose, but if you're using it in your application, you're probably going to have track changes turned on. And also probably the deletion tracking. You probably will have both on for production applications. So we created a data source. Going to import the data using a existing source. I'm going to skip uh, customize because I've done it in other ones. I'm just going to come here. customer ID. I'm not probably going to choose all depending on what I need, but just for demo purpose, I'm going to do this. And this is going to create an indexer. Indexer is going to create the index, which I'll show you. Right? And submit. So now if we go to the indexer, as you can see, it already did. We just, it ran, and I created this earlier because these things take a little bit more time because I am, I'll show you, this as vectors created and all that. So this is pretty quick. So now it's ready for us. And if we go to indexes, oh, I'm surprised it's, okay, so it's not done yet. Hopefully I did not. This is doc succeeded. Okay. Okay, good. Took a little bit of time to show up here. So this is good here. And we are going to, now I'm going to go to Azure OpenAI, and I'm going to go to the Azure Studio, AI Studio, which I have here. So here, before you do anything, you have to deploy the model. So I have deployed the GPT-4 model, and let me open this. There are some settings that you can do. I talked about the definition of token you see here. So how many tokens you can use per minute. There's some limit, you can stretch it. Of course, it's going to cost you more money. And we'll use this when we are not using the GUI from the code, and I'll show you that later on. So now we want to chat with it. So I have that model, and I'm going to remove this data source. I'm just going to add the data source that we just created, Azure AI search. If you remember, we just created this index, right? As you see, this is grayed out because we did not create the index with a vector. So it doesn't give us a option for vector search, which we'll use in another demo. I'll show you. So you go to next, and we cannot do a semantic search here. We can just going to do the keyword search. Next. And good. One thing you can do here, you can give instructions to your model. And I'll show you in the next demo that you'll be surprised to see the quality of the answer without giving instructions to your model. So we just said, your AI assistant, you help company executives gain customer insight, and give some instructions how to give the output or, to the answer to the questions. So now let's try this. So it says the customer working for this company are the same name. It also gives us to reference. And so let's verify this answer, right, with our T-SQL. It's true. So there are two entries for the same company, and it found it, right, without writing any T-SQL, just from your natural language question. So let's ask another question. I said, which company has the most number of customers? So it says, based on the retrieved documents, Here are the counts. So this company has 2, this company has 2, this company has 1. Is that right? And I know this is not right. So as you can see, we have a company with 4 customers, and it could not give you that answer. Last one. So it says that the name of the customer is Todd Logan with that phone number. Let's try that here. That's true. There's 2 entries. It actually referred 2 entries, as you can see here. It actually told us that there are 2 entries. So this was just a keyword search. Now let's get to the vectorization. So, and semantic ranker. So now what you're going to do is we're going to create an index, which I created already. I'll show you. And then we're going to tell the index creation time, import and vectorize the data. And you have to give a column name, which column to vectorize. Right? And I'll show you that. And we'll do this through straight with the code also in this one with T-SQL. But let's just look at it from the GUI point of view, see how it looks like. So we'll go here. Uh, go to search service. You see, we have an index called TA Vector Walmart product. What I did here is I use this table and I said vectorize these descriptions. As you can see here, we have a vector index also. And if you go to the fields, you see this is you will not see this field in the table itself, right? We do not have a column named text vector. This created itself and it has a 1536 dimensions. And now, without even going to the model, I can do some basic search here, right? So like I'm looking for curtains. It found 50 instances of curtain. And what I did here, I can also hide the vectors and just look at the result set. And if you do here a Control F, you can see that why it picked up this records of data, right? Records, because it has the curtain word. We can also do it also gives you in the JSON format, right? What it was using to search this. I have created I want to search for upscale sandal, and I only want to see these columns, and I only want to see maybe like just top 10. It found 7, but this time it did not really look for the keyword, right? It tried to do some semantic search and try to see anything related to a upscale sandal and gave us the result set. As you can see here, this doesn't have the word upscale or sandal, but it can do some semantic search and give us the results. So let's use this index and go here. Now, I also had to deploy this model for using the vectors text embedding. And if we go to chat, let's change our instructions because now we'll be looking at a different set of data. So let's not give any instructions and look at the result sets and remove the data source, add the data source here. We're going to add the vector one. And now I can say do, vector search. I have an embedding model that I just showed you. Okay, if you're lost, let me know. I can go back and show it again. Just put in the chat. So now I'm just going to ask a very generic question here. I'm on a tight budget, but need to find things to make my living room more appealing and are easy to install. Right? There's no way we can do this with T-SQL with like a statement or even with full text search. Mm. So it gave us some recommendations. And I'm going to ask a follow-up question. Are there any inexpensive furniture options? And it gave us, a couple of, yeah, 5 things. Now, notice that I'm going to give it some instructions here because I don't like the way the result sets or the answers came in. I'm telling it that you are an AI assistant and you're going to help people shop for products, give as many detail as possible, and include bullet point, right? And look at the quality of the answer now, just by giving this instruction to the. See how it's like more bullet point, gave you the price, highlighted stuff, like kind of like a key value pair with a short description and all that. Very easy to read and filter through just to see what you need. And let's ask the follow-up question again, the same one. And it's going to give in the same format. So hopefully, I'm able to make a point that how important it is to give you a modeling instruction and context that what you are using this for. We'll take a pause here. Any question, comments? Okay. Uh, this is pretty much doing what we have done in the UI. But if you want to put this in your application and just using T-SQL, how can you do this, right? So I'm going to create a store proc, and it's called create embeddings. I'm pointing to my model with my API key, and I'm going to use this to create create vectors for my description column, right? And I'm going to create it within my database, and I'll show that to you. Connection is broken. Weird. Change connection. No, that's not the right server. Sorry. I thought I had set this up before, but for some reason it's not there. I'm going to quickly get my server name. And I'm going to use this. True mandatory test data connect. What is going on now? True. Okay. How do I do this? That's so interesting. Okay, I don't know why it took 3 attempts to connect. Okay, sorry. Okay, so it created that. This is the function that my colleague wrote to clean up some of the data, but I'll just give you the clean data in a backpack format so you can just restore it and then use it. Now you see what I'm doing. I'm dropping a table called vector table. I'm just going to take the top 250 and then I'm creating adding a new column called description vector. And I'll show you that. And then I'm going to go through those and see if, I'm creating a key value pair like a text and calling that create embeddings. In case if there is no data in those columns, I'm just going to skip those. That's why I have a begin try catch here. And there will be few that you will not be able to create a vector for, whatever reason. Come on. What's going on? Where am I right now? What? Okay, so I've run this. I'm just going to, let's see if it is still there. I'm just going to use this. I'm not sure what's going on. As you can see here, I ran this before. This is what going to get created with the vectors, right? With the function, as you can see. So it took the description column and created vector for all these texts. Okay. And then I did some cleanup. Uh, if it was empty uh, and all that, and then I cleaned up if the description vector column was null. And then I think finally I have about how many rows? So yeah, so you have about 230 records to play with. Now I'm asking a similar question that you saw before. I'm saying, help me plan a high school graduation party, right? And give me some recommendations. Actually, I can, maybe I should have done just to show you this. Let me bring this. There's no reason you can run this from here. So just going to recreate this. So some of these are going to get error, but most of these are going to succeed. And once it's done, let's do this. Because I really want you to see this, not think like, I pre-staged everything. And we're going to delete the one that could not create. So 13 it could not create. And we did the count. I just want to show you the top 10 again, right? We've seen this. So now, is there a shortcut copy command from this cell? I don't know. So I'm just going to take this. And now what I'm doing, I'm using that column the description vector, and using this is a native function now for Azure SQL database, vector distance. So it is going to try to find the similarity of what I'm asking for and give me some recommendations. Right? So it says for holding the party, these are some of the recommendations for the product for a high school graduation party. And I can also do a filtered search with a semantic search. What do I mean by that? Now I'm saying I want to plan a high school graduation party, give me some recommendations, but I also want to make sure that those products have 30 days free return. So what I'm doing here, I'm combining a keyword search and a vector search. I can do that. So now these are the products that are the closest to what I ask from the distance point of view. Plus, they can also be returned within 30 days. Now, if you want to do the whole thing, to create your payload and run everything through the T-SQL code, I literally copied this. I think I put I literally copied this from here, but I changed few things so you can take this and run this. Now, all of these are good on text data, right? One thing you have noticed that all of these models are really not very good at numeric uh, data, right? If you ask questions about how many records, what's the average discount and all that, those answers, it cannot give you a good answer. So as a second part, I'm probably going to take another 5 to 7 minutes to wrap up. And I don't know if any of you had this issue. Those of you use Azure Data Studio, with the latest version, your Python kernel is not working. I'm still trying to solve it. So I'm just going to use something called Visual Studio Code to run my Python code. So you could run this from the same Azure Data Studio, but my Python kernel is not working with the latest stuff. That's why I did not. Uh, I do not know what happened. I'm still trying to fix it. So I'm just going to make it this a little bit bigger. Okay. So this you will needs to like import couple of classes. I'm not a Python expert. I took some help from my colleague to write this up. Um, and then this is where you're going to put your server details, right? I have my SQL Server, my username, password, the database name, and this is what it's pointing to my Azure OpenAI service. So you have to put your Azure OpenAI service name and your OpenAI key, so it can go and use the model that you deployed. And then there is some database configurations using this from the top, your port number and all that. And then you tell what language model to use, which I deployed already, and it's going to use those. Now there is two functions that we're going to use. One is called ask SQL and ask SQL verbose. And we'll use those to ask our questions. So if I ask a question, how many rows are there in the Walmart products table? So let's do one thing before I show you this. Let me explain you why you need this. So let's get rid of this. Let's load another set of data. This is without the vector, just the product table, but no vectorization. Yeah, just a regular index. And let's ask the same question here also. Let's see what happened. As you can see here, the requested information is not available in retrieved data, right? And this is true. I double check. So as you can see here, you can get answers from here. Uh, let's ask this question. Again, it's not there. To the lang chain, you can go to the database itself and also use the model. So as you can see here, it's 465. If you do an average on that column, you'll see it's right. Uh, with the Ask SQL verbose, if any of you are interested, you can. Um, it actually gives you the thought process of what it is doing and how it is getting to the answer. Uh, it actually has pretty good details here, and then what is the thought process and how you get the answer, so you can see a little bit more details. And now let's ask the question. Yeah, there are 23. So, and I checked all these answers beforehand. They look pretty correct. So that is all I have. Yep. And I'm going to share my contact again. And I'll take questions, comments. If you want to come off mute, you can raise your hand, and I think the hosts can unmute you. So,
Okay, so if anybody has any questions, yeah, if you want to raise your hand, you've got some applause there. Thank you so much. It's a lot that we were probably going to end up trying out here. So we really appreciate you taking the time here. Does anybody have any questions, or if you want to put anything in the chat for questions? Oh, we've got a question here in the chat. It says, how do we retrain embeddings in search index when new data becomes available?
yeah, so I showed you, give me a minute. Let me go back to the portal. When you create a new index, you can track changes and deletes. So search service, if I say add index, sorry, no, again, go back, so import data, skip. No, sorry, was it in the data source probably? Yeah, right here. Sorry. So you can say in your source that you have to have change tracking on in your native table, and you have to have the enable, deletion tracking, and that way any changes that you are doing or you are loading more data, the indexer will continuously run and keep your indexes updated. It's pretty much, it goes back to our basics, to our indexing, right? Why do we, and if you know that in SQL Server, there's auto rebuild index, right? As your data change, you can also do it manually, or you can just rely on SQL Server, right? When there's a certain number of changes with the traceback 2371 we used to use before, but from SQL Server 2016, it's natively built in, uh, you know, based on your size of your table, uh, indexes automatically get updated, or you can do it manually. So here it's the same thing. If you enable these two, uh, your model, your indexes are automatically going to be updated, and the model can use it. And you can train your model with your own data, based on what you need. That's a totally different subject, and I'm really not an expert on that. I'll be honest with you. I'm just creating the Microsoft provided built-in models. You're welcome. You're welcome. Any other questions, comments? I know there are lots of bits and pieces. Like as you saw, I still get confused. Like as I said, I'm not an expert on this. I'm also in a learning phase, but I know it's coming, so I'm trying to stay ahead of the curve. So
Okay, if there's any other questions, type it in the chat or raise your hand. If not, we're going to share the contact information. We'll also send out these slides as well too. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate everybody coming and taking the time. And be sure to join our January session and come out and sign up on the meetups to join that January session. So thank you, Tayeb, so much. Very informative, lots of stuff for us to learn, and we appreciate all the links and resources that you provided in there as well too. So happy to share that with the group. So thank you everyone for joining. If there's any other questions, if you want to raise your hand or put it in the chat. If not, we wish you a lovely evening and we'll see you at the next session.
thank you. Thank
Bye.
you, Paul, and thank you for hosting.
No problem. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
bye.
Alrighty, bye-bye.